Forget everything you know about PlayStation exclusives. This year rewrites the rules. Now, exclusivity is just competition between consoles, and a PC release is almost always inevitable. In this video, we'll look at all true and console-only PS5 exclusives for 2025 and 2026, with confirmed release dates or years, games you can play now or soon. Expect Game of the Year contenders, scandals, gameplay instead of trailers, and straight facts. What's up, guys? It's Broz, and here we go. Great news for PS5 and PC owners, we finally have confirmation for the long-awaited Phantom Blade Zero. After many delays and preliminary dates, the game is now officially set to release in fall 2026. Many gamers are genuinely looking forward to this one, and hopefully this time it won't disappoint. Developer S-Game isn't positioning Phantom Blade Zero as a traditional Souls-like game, but rather as an innovative genre they call wuxia action game. This highlights a dynamic and cinematic combat style inspired by martial arts films. They've even coined the term Kung Fu Punk, blending Kung Fu with steampunk and cyberpunk elements in a dark fantasy world reminiscent of the Ming Dynasty era. Gameplay promises to be fast and fluid, with a high attack frequency, feeling like a playable Kung Fu movie. Players will be able to perform wall running, teleporting behind enemies, and spectacular cinematic finishers. The game is built on Unreal Engine 5, allowing for impressive graphics. Early impressions from demos have been largely positive, with players praising the smooth performance on PS5 and the combat choreography. Some players at Gamescom found the game not challenging enough. In response, one of the developers created a new extreme mode that completely overhauls enemy AI, making fights feel more like PvP. This mode unlocks only after the first playthrough. Recently, the studio even had to refute controversial anti-Xbox comments attributed to one of their staff, hinting that an Xbox port might still be possible. Also in 2026, we're getting a new Marvel fighting game, Marvel Tōkon Fighting Souls. This title is being developed by Arc System Works, a studio known for the Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball FighterZ series. Arc System Works aims to make the combat system more approachable while maintaining depth. The game features a 4v4 team battle format, a significant departure from the traditional 3v3 or 2v2 setups popular in other Marvel fighting games. This format allows players to seamlessly switch between their team's characters, creating new levels of synergy and tactical possibilities. The game's visual style is rendered in a Japanese animation aesthetic, giving familiar Marvel heroes and villains a fresh look. For instance, Iron Man's armor is inspired by mecha anime, and Captain America's voice lines are directed to sound triumphant, like a shonen protagonist. The game will feature iconic characters like Doctor Doom and Ghost Rider, as well as lesser-known heroes such as Ms. Marvel and Star-Lord. The inclusion of X-Men and Fantastic Four-related characters like Storm and Doctor Doom is notable, given their absence in previous Marvel vs. Capcom games. The game will be released on PS5 and PC. The world's premier courier simulator, Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, has finally arrived. More accurately, it's no longer just a courier simulator. The game has become far more expansive and, compared to the first installment, easier to get into. Deliveries themselves have taken a back seat, making way for significantly expanded mechanics and new possibilities, including more weapons, upgrades, stealth, action, and open-world anomalies, and even the ability to create a playlist of tracks. To be honest, I never considered the first game a courier simulator because I played it, and it's much deeper than it appears at first glance. I remember that melancholic, at times dark and apocalyptic vibe set to interesting soundtracks, and it was a form of meditation. That's a game I truly remembered. This installment was very warmly received by players and garnered many positive reviews from both players and critics. For example, on Metacritic, the game scored 90 points, clearly contending for Game of the Year. This high rating, surpassing the first game by 8 points, confirms that Kojima Productions succeeded in refining the formula while retaining the series' unique identity. New this time around, the combat system, for instance, has been significantly enhanced with blocking, dodging, and counterattacks. The world has also become more diverse, featuring new climate zones and hazards like dust storms, wildfires, and river floods that dynamically alter the landscape. Those who've played it also praise the stunning visuals and breathtaking scenery, the kind you can just stand and admire without even moving. This release is definitely worth recommending for purchase, while PC owners are just stuck in a boring waiting game. I'm not a fan of including beautiful cinematic shots without gameplay and videos, but unfortunately, for Saros, all we have so far is a cinematic trailer. This game announced at the State of Play in February 2025 is being developed by Finnish studio Housemarque, known for Returnal. Saros isn't a direct sequel but rather a spiritual successor, taking third-person roguelite elements and placing them in a new setting. Here every death isn't an end, but part of the progression. The world of Carcosa, a lost off-world colony under an ominous eclipse, changes after each demise, allowing the protagonist to return stronger. Players take on the role of Arjun Devraj, a Soltari enforcer, whose goal, according to the developers, is to find someone important. This could indicate a search for a family member or child, suggested by the presence of children's voices in the trailer, where Devraj is also seen confronting a many-armed enemy, presumably inspired by Hindu deities. The appearance of this creature sparked community discussions regarding cultural interpretation and potential cultural appropriation, with some users expressing concerns about possible backlash. The absence of gameplay footage in early promotion with only a cinematic trailer might be Housemarque's strategy, but it also reflects PlayStation's tendency to release cinematic, story-driven third-person games, raising questions about genre diversity in their portfolio. Expect Saros to arrive in 2026, exclusively on PS5. Ghost of Yotei is the second pure exclusive on our list, and just like Death Stranding 2, it's highly anticipated. Sucker Punch Productions, the developers behind the hit Ghost of Tsushima, are returning on October 2, 2025, with a new adventure set 300 years after the events of the first game. The new story focuses on Atsu, a survivor seeking revenge against the Yotei Six, a group of 6 criminals who murdered her family and nearly took her own life. Unlike Ghost of Tsushima's linear narrative, players will be able to choose the order in which they pursue these targets, giving the game a more open structure. The combat system has also been significantly expanded. Atsu isn't limited to a single katana. Trailers and the official page confirm dual katanas, kusarigama, odachi, a rifle, and a spear. New combat abilities include unblockable strikes and disarming enemies, and to unlock them, Atsu will need to seek out sensei NPCs. Members of the Yotei Six wield different weapon types, hinting at the possibility of acquiring these weapons after defeating them. Sucker Punch is paying close attention to cultural authenticity, conducting research in Japan to accurately portray Hokkaido and the Ainu culture, the indigenous people inhabiting the region. However, this has also sparked some community discussions regarding historical accuracy and Ainu representation. Nevertheless, the developers state they are actively working with consultants to ensure a respectful portrayal. According to Sucker Punch's creative directors, Ghost of Yotei is the greatest freedom and biggest map of any open-world game they've ever made, and it can very likely be considered another major PS5 exclusive this year, and a strong Game of the Year contender. For true PlayStation fans and those who love to vent their anger in the comments, here's your third pure PS5 exclusive in 2025. And yes, there are only 3 new pure exclusives this year. Code Violet, a dinosaur survival horror game from Team Kill Media, is set to release in July 2025. This game is openly inspired by the classic Dino Crisis, aiming to fill the void left by Capcom's dormant franchise. Players will step into the shoes of Violet Sinclair, navigating a complex overrun by deadly dinosaurs, including velociraptors, a T-Rex, and even a massive crocodile. Now, for an interesting, albeit controversial detail, the developers explicitly stated they are skipping a PC release to prevent vulgar mods of characters, citing a desire to protect their voice actors and artistic vision. This decision sparked quite a bit of debate within the gaming community, especially since their debut trailer actually featured PC gameplay footage. The audience's strong reaction to Team Kill Media's stance on PC mods significantly overshadowed other aspects of the game's early showing. The developers have implemented a unique fear system where Violet's mental state directly influences her perception of threats in the environment, adding a psychological layer to the survival horror. Initial reactions to the first footages were mixed, with some expressing concerns about the graphics and overall visual presentation. However, it's worth noting that 2 months before the game's release, the developers uploaded a nearly 20-minute gameplay video, a bold move not commonly seen. This is the funniest game I've ever seen. I'm just amazed by the developer's imagination. How could they even come up with something like this? Baby Steps, an absurdist walking simulator from the creators of Getting Over It and QWOP, finally has a release date, September 8, 2025. In Baby Steps, players control Nate, a couch potato who finds himself magically teleported from his parents' basement to the base of a mountain and must literally take one step at a time to traverse the world. Each of Nate's legs is controlled separately using the controller triggers, making walking challenging yet surprisingly intuitive. This unique mechanic turns a simple action into a constant challenge, where Nate's every fall, clumsy movement, and funny mumble elicits laughter. Main character is far from a typical game hero. He sweats, falls in the mud, and refuses help, even when offered a map or shoes. This creates a comical contrast with the majestic landscapes he must overcome. The game has no traditional health bar, and Nate cannot die, regardless of fall height, making it more approachable for those concerned about difficulty. Instead, the challenges lie in mastering the controls and overcoming obstacles that often seem specifically designed to make the player stumble. The developers expect players to create their own challenges, such as, "Can I beat this game without losing this hat?" Baby Steps is set to release for PS5 and PC, and will rid Sony's line of console exclusives of humor. Nioh 3, the new installment in Team Ninja's hardcore action RPG series, is set to release in early 2026. The Nioh series has always been known for its challenging, Souls-like inspired combat, and the third game promises to significantly evolve this formula. A key change in Nioh 3 is the ability to instantly switch between two distinct combat styles, Samurai and Ninja, even mid-combo. The Samurai style offers a more traditional Nioh experience with an emphasis on timing and stamina management. The Ninja style, in contrast, focuses on speed, dodges, aerial attacks, and the use of various ninjutsu techniques. This style switching system is an evolution of the yokai shift mechanics from the second game, but now it's integrated much more deeply. Unlike previous installments, which featured a mission-based structure, Nioh 3 will introduce an open world or open field for exploration. While the developers emphasize it won't be a giant open world like Elden Ring, it will offer significantly greater freedom of research and unexpected encounters with yokai and mysterious villages. A limited-time demo for Nioh 3 was available on PS5 until June 18, 2025, allowing players to get a first taste of the new mechanics and world. Early player feedback shows mixed feelings about changes to controls and certain mechanics, such as key pulse and button layouts. Still, many note the potential of the new style switching system and improved level design. Team Ninja is actively collecting player feedback through a survey on their official website, demonstrating their commitment to refining the game. Sword of the Sea, the new adventure game from Giant Squid, the studio known for Abzu and the Pathless. This game promises a unique and meditative experience, where players will glide across endless waves of sand and water on an ancient hoverboard called the Hover Sword, which combines elements of a snowboard, skateboard, and hoverboard, allowing players to build momentum, perform tricks, and soar over giant waves. Movement on the Hover Sword feels fluid and natural, whether on sand or water, with water significantly increasing speed. The developers paid special attention to the animations of the Wraith, the game's protagonist, to make them as smooth and buttery as possible. The game world is a desolate, abandoned planet where the player, as the Wraith, must bring life back by collecting ocean seeds. Activating these seeds transforms sand dunes into shimmering emerald waters, bringing back marine life and opening new paths for exploration. Sword of the Sea, like director Matt Neva's previous works, contains no dialogue, with the narrative relying entirely on visuals and music composed by Austin Wintory. This creates a deeply atmospheric and introspective journey where the story unfolds through the environment and symbols. While there are no traditional enemies to fight, there is an antagonist in the form of another Wraith, who symbolizes the legacy of violence the protagonist is trying to shed. Lost Soul Aside, the highly anticipated action RPG. This game, developed by Chinese studio Ulti Games, began as a one-person project by Yang Bing and evolved for over a decade before gaining PlayStation support. This lengthy development cycle, which started during the PS4, allowed the team to significantly expand the project's ambitions and elevate it to AAA status. The game promises high-octane combat reminiscent of Devil May Cry and Final Fantasy XV, with an emphasis on stylish animations, spectacular effects, and adaptive strategies for defeating bosses. Players control Kaser, who embarks on a perilous journey to rescue his sister Louisa and save humanity from mysterious invaders from other dimensions. He is accompanied by a dragon-like demon named Arena, with whom Kaser shares power. Even though the game was developed on the now outdated Unreal Engine 4, it looks very colorful and showcases impressive visual effects. The developers chose to stick with UE4 instead of upgrading to UE5 to focus on polish and optimization. Lost Soul Aside is more than just a series of spectacular battles. The game promises a deep story of redemption and discovery, filled with high-stakes conflicts and gasp-worthy moments. The game world is a blend of fantasy and science fiction with diverse locations. The recent delay from May to August 2025 was due to the need for additional polish time to ensure a high-quality product. The release is scheduled for August 29, 2025 on PS5 and PC. Forever Skies, a first-person sci-fi survival game. Developed by Polish studio Far From Home, this game offers a unique take on post-apocalyptic survival, where players build, upgrade, and fly a high-tech mobile airship above a devastated Earth. The core gameplay loop involves gathering resources, crafting tools, and facing dangers on the surface as players search for a cure to save humanity. The game isn't a pure sandbox. It has a clear story goal, and technological progression is tightly linked to the plot's development. After its early access launch, the game received mixed reviews. Players noted technical issues, tedious gameplay mechanics, and repetitive environments that diminished the sense of exploration and variety. But Far From Home publicly stated they have no intention of abandoning the game and are actively working on updates and fixes to meet player expectations. The full version of Forever Skies was released on April 14th this year on PS5 and PC. Ballad of Antara, a new dark fantasy action RPG from Tipsworks Studio and Endfield Games. This is an ambitious project that will be distributed as a free-to-play title, which is unusual for games of this scale, especially on consoles. The game plunges players into a distant land ravaged by a mysterious mist-like plague, where they must embark on a perilous journey to find divine creatures and retrieve the twisted and lost essences of the land. Players will control emissaries, powerful beings wielding the force of fundamental essences with unique classes and combat capabilities. Gameplay features elements reminiscent of Souls-like games like Wo Long Fallen Dynasty with dodges and posture meters. Battles are designed with flexibility in mind. Similar to Wuthering Waves, the game lets you switch between multiple emissaries in real time, adding both depth and dynamism to the combat. The world of Ballad of Antara will consist of multiple regions with diverse landscapes and unique biomes, and will also include an otherworldly dimension called Para, where danger lurks. The developers promise that each area will have its own unique story and enemies. The free-to-play model and mobile release alongside PS5 and PC raised some concerns within the community. Some players expressed doubts about the game's quality, suggesting it might be balanced around free-to-play mechanics, potentially leading to gacha balancing or microtransactions affecting gameplay. The Midnight Walk, an adventure game with horror elements from Moonhood Studio, stands out with its unique visual style, reminiscent of claymation and Tim Burton's Gothic worlds. Developers handcrafted almost all models and characters from clay, then 3D scanned them for use in the game, giving the world a distinct tactile aesthetic. The story begins with the protagonist, the Burnt One, rising from a grave in a world of eternal night, inhabited by crawlers, creatures with staggered, unsettling movements. Core gameplay involves escaping these creatures, hiding, and solving puzzles using light and a unique closed eyes mechanic that reveals hidden paths. Critical reception was generally favorable, with particular praise for its visual style and atmosphere. On Metacritic, the game received a score of 77 from critics and 8.4% from users. On Steam, it holds a 94% positive rating. Many reviewers note that the game is best experienced in VR mode, where the sense of depth and the three-dimensional texture of the clay world enhance immersion. Despite some gameplay flaws like overly simple puzzles and tedious stealth segments, and technical issues, The Midnight Walk remains a unique and emotionally rich experience worth playing for its artistic value and profound narrative. AI Limit, a new Souls-like game from developer Sense Games, was released on March 27 this year on PS5 and PC. This game transports players to a post-apocalyptic world ravaged by mysterious catastrophes and covered in toxic black mud, which paradoxically serves as a source of health for the protagonist. Players take on the role of Arisa, an android blader created to restore balance to the world by eliminating monsters. AI Limit aims to make the Souls-like genre more accessible, which is an interesting approach for a genre known for its high difficulty. One key difference is the absence of a traditional stamina bar, allowing players to attack more aggressively without constantly monitoring exhaustion. Instead, the game uses a sync rate system that increases damage at high values and weakens the player at low values, encouraging cautious but offensive play. The game's reception has been mixed, reflected in the disparity between critic and user scores. On Steam, the game received 93% positive reviews, while on Metacritic, the average critic score was 67, and the user score was 7.5. Steam users often praise the sync rate system, visual style, and accessibility, calling the game a hidden gem. Reviewers, conversely, sometimes point to repetitive enemies, uninspired boss design, and overall lack of originality, as well as technical issues and bugs. Instead of trailers, I decided to show you gameplay from the closed beta test that took place this May. Where Winds Meet, an ambitious wuxia action RPG, developed by Everstone Studio and published by NetEase, the game transports players to the turbulent 5 Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms era in China. The game offers an expansive 20 square kilometers open world filled with diverse regions, from serene countryside to bustling cities, mountains, rivers, and ancient ruins. Players will be able to master up to 12 different combat styles inspired by classical Chinese texts, using a variety of weapons such as spears, swords, fans, and umbrellas. Additionally, the game allows for non-combat professions like doctor, merchant, or architect, each offering unique quests and gameplay mechanics. Where Winds Meet's gameplay includes elements reminiscent of Ghost of Tsushima and Sekiro, with a parry system. At the same time, the game also offers a much wider range of interactions with the world. Players can steal from NPCs, hijack horses, engage in PvP battles with other players who might hunt them, and even end up in prison. There's also a building system, allowing players to create houses, cities, and even vehicles like ships and airplanes. Beta reviews were mixed. Some players praised the open world and story, but criticized the combat system for weak hit feedback, lack of stagger from normal attacks, and minimal differences between weapon types. Issues with NPC facial animations and voice acting were also noted, which some felt had a low-budget feel typical of Chinese MMORPGs. Where Winds Meet is expected globally in 2025 on PS5, PC, and mobile devices. Five Nights at Freddy's Secret of the Mimic, a new installment in the popular Five Nights at Freddy's horror franchise, was released on June 13, 2025. Developed by Steel Wool Studios, this game continues Security Breach and its Ruin DLC, delving into the origins of the villain Mimic and the history of Fazbear Entertainment. The game is a free-roam survival horror, distinguishing it from earlier entries in the series. It is presumed to take place in the 1970s, allowing for exploration of the franchise's early stages and new lore details. A new animatronic, the clown-like Jackie, appears in the game, whose musical theme resembles the puppet from FNAF 2, hinting at a possible connection between the characters. The plot focuses on investigating the past of Edwin Murray, an inventor who created the Mimic after the tragic deaths of his wife Fiona and son David. The Mimic, a program capable of imitating voices and personalities, has been the cause of many horrors in Fazbear Entertainment's history. The game delves into these dark roots, inviting players to uncover the mysteries of the abandoned Costume Manor. Initial impressions of the game are varied, with some players pointing out technical problems such as visual glitches and crashes, along with monotonous gameplay and a lack of suspense. Some players also criticize the game for relying too heavily on book lore that doesn't always align with the game universe, and for what they perceive as a disregard for established lore. Arknights Endfield is set to release no later than August 30 this year, because this deadline is set by China's National Press and Publication Administration as the cutoff for games that have received a license. This means Hypergriff, the game's developer, aims to release it before this date to avoid losing approval. Endfield transports players to Talos 2, a perilous planet where pioneers have built settlements protected by massive walls, while the wildlands beyond remain untamed and await exploration. Players will lead the Endfield Industries team to uncover lost technologies and secrets in ancient ruins. The game combines elements of action RPG, open world, and strategy, with a focus on real-time tactical combat. Compared to the original Arknights, Endfield offers fully 3D environments and character models, as well as more interactive adventuring mechanics. Closed beta tests, which concluded in February 2025, showed significant improvements in the combat system and visual presentation compared to early demonstrations. Some players worry that Endfield might deviate from the darker and more mature themes characteristic of the original Arknights, leaning towards a cuter or childish style. There are also fears that the story might be too much of a setup for the future, failing to offer a strong enough beginning. I know you're probably going to say there are too many Chinese games, mostly RPGs and soulslikes, a lack of true exclusives, and high prices from Sony, and I can't really disagree. It seems to me that Xbox has made significant progress this year, especially considering how many and what kinds of games it adds to its Xbox Game Pass subscription, which costs next to nothing. I recommend checking out my 2 videos about games already released and coming soon for Game Pass. You might even feel like switching platforms. See you next time.